Yes, so thank you, Rav Moshe David, for the introduction. We're teaching a theme that normally would go into a frame of what we call ethics. How should a person behave? What is a good way of being towards your next, loving or caring or criticizing, as we will speak about. But it's very important. I'll try to focus in this shiur, since we are in shiur of halacha, on the halacha aspects of it. And I want to say before I go on that the halacha aspect does not make it less. Normally we say, oh, you should love your next, as we will speak about. Or it says you have to criticize, or you have to, when you go to the ethics, like it's without boundaries. It's something we could take to everything, every place, and it's very big. And when we come to halacha, it feels sometimes as if it's a discussion that puts this very important deed in a frame. You have to do this, and you don't have to do that. And it could give the impression that the halacha makes these ethics less important. Because of that, I want to start with saying the opposite. First of all, halacha is commitment that we are committed to do. Sometimes where there are ethics where you can speak very high, but you're not committed to it every word you say, with every question you ask, with every deed you do, with sometimes every feeling you have. When we say that it's halacha, then it should be as if someone who keeps Shabbat knows that he will never on Shabbat go and turn on the fire. That's okay, that's clear. We don't do that. And it should be as clear for someone who keeps halacha that you shouldn't do so and so towards your next. And that makes, in my opinion, it puts it in a very unique and a big level of commitment towards these ethical halachas, if we can call it that. And in addition, it's important to say that halakha does not limit ethics outside the halakha. Meaning, if there is something that is inside the frame of halakha, there are sometimes things we can do outside the frames of halakha. That's not a problem. It's important to discuss ethics and so on. So this is not limiting what we are speaking about. It's actually puts a frame for it, makes it more make us more committed to it. But this does not mean that in a shiur that is not about halakha that we can't open our minds and make it also much bigger than that. I'll begin sharing my screen. I think it's this one. Yes. Okay, so we will mainly focus on the two sentences 17 and 18. One of them you began studying already. Some of them it's like connected to something you studied already 2 weeks ago with Rav Natan. You shall not hate your kinsfolk in your heart. Okay, that's not hating your brother or your next, or there are different translations for it. And that is not our theme, but it's the start of the sentence, very important to see. Reprove your kin, but incur no guilt on their account. Just a moment. Try to find another translation that I think maybe is a little better.
You can translate to Norwegian for those who speak Norwegian, Swedish, and
That
maybe
also help. What they do in Sefaria that is very good, that you have so many translations that they have all of it, but then you could have an old translation sometimes. That is a little harder. Okay, but okay, let's let it say. Okay, you should not hate your brother or your next or your fellow in your heart. You should hochiach tochiach, reprove, meaning criticize or say, tell them when they do a mistake, speak with them. Your amitecha, your next, your fellow. So you won't bear guilt on their account, or you won't bear the guilt of them. Okay. And then the next sentence, you just read it, but we'll focus first on the first sentence. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against members of your people. Love your fellow as yourself. I am Hashem. Okay, so now love your fellow as yourself is a very important mitzvah. We'll come to it later today, I hope. So let's first focus on the first sentence and the second part of the first sentence. Okay, you should. I will use like criticize or warn your fellow, so you will not bear the guilt of them doing a mistake, probably. Okay, how do we? Any one of you, how we understand that? How should we do that? Yes, Florian.
If you witness someone doing something wrong or inappropriate, you should set them aside and let them know so that they can improve. But you take them on the side so that you don't shame them. And yeah.
Wait, you said many things, very important things. You say someone does a mistake, okay, or something that is inappropriate, against halacha, okay, let's say that. And you see that they do that. Are you obligated to say it or not? And then you say, yes, you are obligated to warn them that they're doing a mistake. Because if not, I'll add, maybe I don't remember you said it, if not, you are also to blame because you saw them do it and you didn't say anything. So you're not alone in the world when we regarding I will keep my mitzvot with Hashem and everything will be okay. I don't care what's happening around me. Someone beside me is doing a mistake. I'm a part of a society. Hashem has not created me on an island alone. And then if I'll just let my next, my fellow, doing the mistake and not tell him, not warn him, not stopping him, then if I do that, then I will bear, in a way we could say, the sins of what he does. He won't stand alone with the sin. I also, because I could warn him before. And then you add, Florian, you add something important, and it doesn't say it here, but you did it either from knowledge or from common sense, that you said that, but do it in a proper way, okay? Because it doesn't say it here. Here it doesn't say here, do it in a proper way, just say, do it. And you said, don't do it in front of everyone. Okay, don't shame someone, because shaming someone is also a sin. So don't stop a sin with another sin. Maybe I will add with my own words. Okay, those don't stop a sin with another sin, and because of that, that's important. I will ask you a question, just studying the sentence before we dive deeper into the halakha here. I want to ask you, is the first part of the sentence connected to the second, or is it two mitzvot on one sentence? Some connection there will always be, but is it one mitzvah that we see here? Because you studied, you should not hate your brother or your next or your beloved in your heart. You shouldn't have hate in the heart. That was what we studied 2 weeks ago. And then it says you should. Is it connected, or is it two different things? Just what do you think? We could hear one or two opinions if you want to share. Yes, so I will show you opinions of Florian. Yes.
Sorry, I think that they are connected, because if you don't tell the person what they're doing wrong, you could if you boil it in, you can start feeling hate or frustration, anger towards
So
them.
you see him doing something wrong, you're not connected to his actions, and then you say, oh, he's so bad. And you don't understand that you are part of it, and then you hate him. Maybe that direction is it. Interesting. You find a connection. I want to show you Ibn Ezra, maybe also Ramban Nachmanides, and their comment on the sentence. Okay, Ibn Ezra says, and I quote the second comment of Ibn Ezra on the sentence. Perhaps you suspected him of something which was not so. The meaning of "and not bear sin because of him" is that you be punished because of him. Okay, so what the way he understands, do it shortly, is he understands this sentence as one, and in some ways totally different of what our explanation until now. What he says is that when you should not hate your next, and then when you see him doing something that seems wrong, as Florian said, I think you said it correctly that way, you will think that he is doing something wrong because he is a bad person or something like that. And then he understands the word "shochiach tochiach" as go and speak to him. Don't build a whole theory in your heart about how evil he is because he does something that you don't understand. And because of that, you'll hate him. Because of his evil, you will never understand his deeds before you speak to him. And then, because of that, he says, you will have a sin. Which sin? Of hating him. Because you will have a sin of hating him because you didn't speak to him when he did something that seems weird for you or wrong for you. And I have to add, it's a totally different understanding in the sentence than what we do when we read it for the first time and say, okay, you shouldn't hate, and you should be able to criticize or to warn your next. He says, no, you have to speak to them when you do something wrong, because then you won't hate them. Ramban also goes in a similar direction. Nachmanides also go in a similar direction, where he says, I won't maybe not read it all now, but in short, I will say, he says that you should forgive him. Okay, so it goes also that way. Okay, you should speak to him, you should forgive him for what he did, because if not, you'll create hatred. But that is in the world, and here it's important to say that when we study Torah, even if it's halakha, the commentators, they can take the understanding in the sentence in the way they want, as we said before. So even Ezra understands this sentence as speak to him, because then you won't hate him. But when we go to halakha, we're committed to a kind of tradition we have in the way Chazal have understand these sentences. It doesn't mean that Ibn Ezra is wrong. We could also learn Ibn Ezra, as we said now. And halakha actually normally sees these two parts of the sentence as two different mitzvot, not one sentence, and we have to understand it as a whole, as we could do when we study Torah, but as two separate mitzvot that we could discuss why they're both in the same sentence and which connection they have to each other. What you said, Florian, it could be also an answer for that. But we take the second part as it doesn't have directly, when we want to study it as halakha, it doesn't have directly a connection to the first part of you shouldn't hate. It has, of course, a connection to our relationship with our next. And then we're back to what we said in the start, understanding that this sentence tells us that we should warn or criticize. I use these two words because it's in a way could be understood in these ways. Our next, when we see him doing something wrong or when he's going to do something wrong, so that we won't bear the sin of what he does. Now let's go on now trying to see what the Talmud says about this.
Can I ask it here in?
Of course, yes.
So I read the book from Chafetz Chaim, the Shimra Shaloshan, and I'm reading the Chafetz Chaim, like the daily. I don't remember the full name, but anyway, daily. And he said, like, he always talks about this benefit of a doubt, and even if you see someone like, is a good person and does not sin, and if you see him doing something bad, that you should first of all think that maybe he's not doing, and it's not like this, and the second thing that you should you shouldn't tell him that he did something bad, but you should ask what allowed you to do this and this thing. So it's a little bit not so strict that as this is. Of course,
if I understand you correctly, there is something that is disturbing you when we say it in the way we say it. Why? Because going around criticizing other people, is that a good deed in itself? Then we will be human beings who go around and say, "Oh, you do bad." And it will also, as you said, when you read the halachot of Lashon Hara of Chafetz Chaim, where should you have in your heart or in your words something that could say some negatives about others? And here this sentence says something that seems very it seems very negative towards others. Okay, and maybe you warn us already now, saying, okay, there is a way of saying this. Okay, there is a difference of saying, why are you doing so bad things? Or saying, could you maybe explain me what the idea is? And then it's in a humble way, letting the other person to reflect on his own deeds without you being his judge, the one who understands why he does wrong. And now I understand the world better and I'll tell them how to do things. Yes, Meir, you could.
Yes, so what I don't remember was it is in this book or Mesilat Yesharim. I'm reading them at the same time, but he said that in those days when there was like these big rabbis, there was no one worthy enough to reprove someone. So surely in our days, even less, there is anyone who can reprove others.
Yeah, we will see it very soon. What the quote of what you said. Okay, let's go to the first quote I want to show is from Talmud Bavli, Masechet Arachin. Put it Hebrew and English. Yeah, okay. Anyone who wants to read or is able to read? I can make it a little bigger also. Yeah. Anyone, or should I think I'll just read myself.
Okay, read it. From where
Okay,
is
thank
it
you.
derived with regard to one who seems unseemly matter in another, that he is obligated to rebuke him? As it is stated, you shall rebuke your neighbor. If one rebuked him for his action, but he did not accept the rebuke, from where is it derived? What he must rebuke him again, the verse states, you shall rebuke, and the double language indicate he must rebuke in any case. One might have thought that one should continue rebuking him, even if his face changes during the humiliation. Therefore, the verse states, do not bear sin because of him. The one giving rebuke may not sin by embarrassing the other person.
Okay, so here we see two things, okay, or several things. First of all, the Gemara here very clearly explains that we have an obligation to rebuke our next when we see them do something that is here see unseemly matter, something that is not okay. Okay, we have obligation, and not only that you are obligated to rebuke, but we should repeat it until they stop. And we learn it from the word in Hebrew. It says, and that's the way it says it's repeated. It doesn't say tochiach et amitecha. It says hochiach tochiach. It's a repetition. And that makes it even stronger in the obligation we have to warn, criticize, rebuke our next when they do something wrong. But it also understands the finish of the sentence in a little different way than how I explained it to begin with. And it says that when do we stop? We stop in the place where he gets humiliated, because then we are making, with our rebuke, with our criticizing him, we're making him shamed. Yes, Sophie? Or a comment?
Yeah, sorry. It's just because I think I heard that like you should continue to ask the person to rebuke until like the person like verbally states, I will not rebuke.
Yeah, yeah, so there's also other quotes saying how much until he hits you, until he tells you, I don't want to hear anymore. So that's also another quote. We won't read it today, but yes, there's also a question we see in Talmud, how long, how far should we go in it, and there are different opinions. Someone says, even if he says, I don't want to hear anymore, you're obligated to continue until he finishes. Someone says, okay, when he begins to hit you, then you have to stop. Okay, because then you're damaging yourself in it. Esther, yes.
Yes, there was one person I was rebuking, stop that, I don't want to hear that. And finally, unfortunately, I understood that that person didn't want to change. Very hard. So I had to make a painful decision to stop the relationship, because it is like it's coming like all the time, trying to take me away from Judaism. And the more I rebuked, the more hard the person got. So I said, okay, Zeu, and I cut the connection. There was no other way out.
That's possible. It doesn't say, important to say here, and I won't go to every relationship we have with every other human being, that if he doesn't listen to you, you have to stop being friends with him. It just says that you're obligated to rebuke. Important to say, we will soon discuss where are you obligated and where you're not obligated to rebuke, and because there is obligation to rebuke. And when we said this, shows a very strong obligation of, when you see someone do something wrong, you have to tell them. But if we just read on in the same Talmud, we will see that even the Talmud here has quotes saying, well, this isn't so complicated, so simple as we tried to show it in the start. Yes, Sarah.
But how? I mean, it seems problematic to me, because how will I know that I know better than the other one? And then I will go into this, and who knows? Maybe it's the other one who knows, or a third, or a fifth. I would feel embarrassed myself to do it.
So on a personal level, I agree with you. I understand it, and we see it also on that it's very complicated. It's not easy. But I want to start, first of all, when we speak about halakha, understanding our obligation to do it. Okay? The question is very important. How and if and when and so on is very important. But I want you to start just saying, there is a mitzvah from the Torah. The Torah says we are obligated to tell our next. Okay? And if not, we will bear sin. We saw it, maybe the sin is that we humiliate them. And then we have to stop. But there is a very clear obligation, and that has to be the basic. Not why not, but why yes. Why do I have obligation when there is someone beside me not saying, I don't care, that's him, I don't know how, I don't know what, because let him do what he wants, I'll just focus on myself. The Torah says, no. You have a connection to your next, and you have obligation to warn them, to criticize them, okay, to rebuke them. That's the obligation you have. Now, okay, we are speaking about halakha, how, when, so on. That's an very important question. But it doesn't say that we could just leave it, okay? Generally, okay? Maybe we'll ask the question again after we read even more quotes, okay? The Talmud, yes, Moshe David.
I'm just thinking in terms of maybe it helps focus on the question of where a person is when he is rebuking, because when we're looking now and saying, who should I rebuke and what is the response? The question is also, where am I? Because if I am full of anger, am I in the right place to do that? And just adding that maybe to, I don't want to, just wanted to add that perspective in looking at these halachot as well.
I agree. Let's, Sophie, if you could also read the next quote in the same Talmud.
Sure. It is taught in the Beraita that Rabbi Tafon says, I would be surprised if there is anyone in this generation who can receive rebuke. Why? Because if the one rebuking says to him, remove the splinter from between your eyes, rid yourself of a minor infraction, the other says to him, remove the beam from between your eyes. You have committed far more severe sins. Rabbi Eliezer.
Just stop here as an example. If someone will tell me I'm doing something wrong, okay, what will be my natural instinct? To go in defense. And what is the best defense? Going attacking. Are you telling me that I'm doing what's wrong? Look at yourself. You're even worse. Okay? And so the Talmud here says, I don't know if there is anyone, it's a quote also Meir told us earlier. I don't know if there's anyone who is is in the set of mind where he's actually open to get a rebuke in a good way. Okay, let's go on. Sophie, the next.
Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah says, I would be surprised if there is anyone in this generation who knows how to rebuke correctly without embarrassing the person he is rebuking.
Yes. So in the same way, Sarah, maybe this answers some of your questions in a way. It says, is there anyone who is worthy of rebuking? Worthy because they're so perfect that they could tell others what they do, or that they know how to do it in a way that won't humiliate another person? And is there anyone who is open enough and worthy to get rebuke? And it's important to say that these two sentences could be understood to halacha. Okay, but then we're not allowed to rebuke at all. But in the halacha books, we don't take it in that direction, okay? So they are a very important reminder for, okay, don't take the rebuke to a place where I know better than anyone else and I'll tell everyone. There's maybe no one who is worthy to getting a rebuke or to giving a rebuke. That's what they say. And therefore, because of that, you have to be so careful when you say something. And who is the one listening? And when and how and in front of whom? Or all of these questions are important questions that are also discussed in halacha. And we don't take this quote to say, okay, but then we're not allowed, finished, because humiliating someone is even worse. So because of that, we won't say. So halacha doesn't take it in that direction. In addition, I want to say that what this mitzvah tells us, and also what this Braita that in a way puts it in a complicated frame that says, okay, just rebuking people, to just tell them what to do, is that correct? Or are we worthy of are we open to getting criticized by others without that being a fight, without understanding? And I think it's also pointing a very important, this mitzvah and this quote, a very important sign. Not only we speak about the frame of halacha, we'll continue with that, but about the idea of how important it is to be in a society that can, we see in many ways the opposite in what it says here, in a society that can criticize. Okay, just a question. When we choose our best friends, okay, are we trying to find friends that will always tell us that we are the best in the world? Or do we want to have friends that always tell us, oh, you did a mistake here, did a mistake here, did a mistake here? Okay. Some of us, or a part in our heart, will always want people to just tell us how good we are. It gives us a good feeling short term. It doesn't make us better persons. We don't understand ourselves or our society better. And everyone who knows a real good friend, but then you have to be trusty in your friend. You have to know that your friends love you and admire you and wants your best because of that, he is telling you the criticism. Because of that, the ones who are closest to you are those who could criticize you more than those who are far, because those who are far won't know what to say and how to say and how you will accept it or not accept it. But the idea of a society that always wants to make itself better is a society where we are open to get criticized without that feeling as a personal attack or a way of speaking us down, and that is open to hear our feedbacks about the society or about the persons we are against. That has to be the idea. And because of that, that's the obligation we have. But then it also reminds us that we don't know always how to do that. And if we do it in a wrong way, then this could have an effect that I want to tell him not to do a sin because I want to do the world better. I want to make him better. But sometimes the way I say it, or the set of mind he is in, or the place I say it, leads to two things. One, that he won't listen to me, so what? And two, it will create more hatred and more discussions and make the world worse. So if we want to make the world better, we have to think about every word we say. Is this making the world better, or are we damaging the world by being more clever than anyone else? And this quote is very clearly in a halacha frame, okay? So, okay, we are obligated to rebuke, but the Talmud tells us, I will show a quote again. Now we go over to Yevamot. Tells us that there is a very important limit to this mitzvah, okay? Sophie, you were so good, so if it's okay for you, I could also get a little coffee when you're reading. Yeah, we are in Yevamot, again, Talmud Bavli, in Yevamot. The Gemara, where it says the Gemara, you could start there.
Oh, it's Gates because I'm muted, sorry. Okay, the Gemara cites other statements by, can you remove the mouse? Rabbi Ile?
Ilah, yeah.
Ilah, in the name
Yeah.
of Rabbi Eliezer, son of Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi, what was it?
Ileah.
Ileah,
Yeah.
said in the name of, nowhere there I'm reading the same, sorry, got confused. Rabbi Eliezer, son of Rabbi Shimon, just as it is a mitzvah for a person to say that which be heeded. So it is a mitzvah for a person not to say that which will not be heeded. One should not rebuke those who will be unreceptive of his message. Rabbi Abba says, it is obligatory for him to refrain from speaking, as it is stated, do not reprove a scorner, lest he hate you. Reprove a wise man and he will love you. Okay, that was a little tough. Sorry.
Yeah, great. No, very good. Okay. So what he says, okay, Rabbi Ilah, in the name of Rabbi Elazar, in the name of Rabbi Shimon, that's how it's very important for the Talmud and for us to quote when we say something who we heard it from, and not taking credit for something someone else said. So the quote of Rabbi, of the name of Rabbi is very normal in the Talmud, and it says, as same as there is a mitzvah, okay, to rebuke when it's heard, when the person on the other side will receive the mitzvah and listen to you. In the same way, he says there is a mitzvah not to say anything if the other person will not receive it, okay? Meaning that then it's better to be quiet. And Rabbi Abba says, you're not allowed to say anything, okay? And the quote, very nicely, I think, or very importantly, says that, and goes back to what we said before. If you reprove a wise man, he will love you. He will thank you for saying something to him. But if you go to a person where you think, because of yourself, or because of him, or because of the situation, that he won't listen to you, then you're obligated to be quiet and not to say anything, because then you'll only create hatred. Florian, yes.
How do you know if they won't listen? Unless you rebuke first.
You try to understand the situation, you learn from your mistakes, and if you're not sure, you choose and you feel the obligation to say something, it's important to say there is an obligation to say something, you do it very, very, you do it very
Carefully.
carefully in a way. Yeah. But this is in a way in contrast to what I said, quoted before, saying you have to repeat it until he listens. So we have two different quotes that say in a way the opposite. And the halakha discussion, I won't go into all the details, trying to understand, okay, how should we live with this? You have to repeat it, and you're not allowed to say anything that someone won't listen to. And there are different answers for them. I won't give all the answers right now, but generally, there is one way of solving this problem is sometimes when there is a bad deed out there, okay, just being quiet doesn't help. So you have to, in a way, demonstrate against it, okay? We are in a Jewish community in Oslo, and everyone are saying bad things and hatred about a person. Don't care who it is. And they say it in the way we believe in the sins, okay? Are we allowed just to let it go and say, oh, I will just be quiet? Or are we obligated to protest, at least with a sentence, saying, I actually think that it's wrong to say this and this, okay? So we protest not about a person, but about what persons say, because if we don't protest, we let it be, or there is everyone doing something that we believe is wrong. So are we? Could we be quiet? And then it's very important to say, no, we can't be quiet. We have to say our opinion. We have to try to make the world better. We have to at least protest. That's one thing. And the second thing, when it comes to rebuking another person directly, then it's a little more complicated, because when we want to rebuke another person, then we can humiliate him. And then, of course, there's a question, are we in front of other people or are we alone? Is this a person that we think will listen to what we say or not? What is the relationship? Where are we? Where are they? What is the sin we're speaking about? Okay? And all of these things are very important details that we have to consider ourselves, and always thinking, do my word make the world better or worse? Maybe that should be a kind of a way of checking it, and there are different answers for that. We are lacking a little time, so I'll just jump over to Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch is the one speaking about where we find the final, not the final, but a very clear halakha book, writing what is the halakha, what we should do about different things. And here we are, it's totally about someone who doesn't know that they shouldn't eat. It speaks especially about women, and they eat and drink until it's in a time just before Shabbat, where it should already stop. Okay, and here the Shulchan Aruch says, should not be objected to do so. Okay, that she doesn't know, or they don't know that it's not, there's a good deed of stopping the Shabbat before not eating, but he says that you should not you should not tell them that they shouldn't do that, okay? Why not? Because then they will do it then they will know about the halakha and do it in any case, okay? I'll just show it. I don't like the translation here so good, okay? So the first is that there is a mitzvah, a tradition of not eating in a pan. It's not the halakha of the Torah, okay? It doesn't say, it's not breaking the Shabbat rules, or not breaking the rules of, I don't know, something else, okay? And you see that they do a mistake, and you just studied in the shiur halakha that you had, or in reading the book, that that's a mistake because you shouldn't eat now. Shulchan Aruch said, no, don't go to everyone and tell them, oh, that's a mistake. Because what do you do then, especially on things that are not as important, okay? If you see someone who wants to keep the Shabbat and begins to make a fire on Shabbat, you should say, oh, you know that it's not allowed, and it will stop. But this is a smaller detail, not a big detail that you studied in Halacha, and you say that they do that by mistake. And he says sometimes it's better not to say, because then what will happen? Not only that they will continue doing that because they won't listen to your comment, but in addition, now they know that it's not allowed and they continue doing that. So it's better for them to continue doing that without knowledge than knowing that someone said that it's not allowed and they continue doing that. So in a way, you make their sin bigger by saying it, and I'll be shortly, okay? And here I quoted it's mainly to see what the Rema says. Rema is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, and he says the same is the rule in every forbidden thing. We say that it is better that the people do it the wrong thing without knowing the halacha than by knowing the halacha. But this is only when the law is not explicitly stated in the Torah, even though it is a Toraic law. Okay, if there is something, as we said, lighting the fire on Shabbat, then you should say it. But if it's a law from a very important law, we study halacha by the rabbis and what they say and so on, don't say it. Don't say it. Okay? But if it's something more, then you should say it. I want to add that there is an important comment here on this Shulchan Aruch by Biur Halacha, and he says that the whole discussion here is on people who want to keep halacha. Okay, if someone says I want to keep halacha, then the whole discussion about telling them that they're doing a mistake is out. Because the whole idea is you live in a society telling someone who says, I don't want to keep Shabbat. Oh, why do you light the fire on Shabbat? He says he doesn't want to keep the halacha. He said that's a choice he took. Why should you tell him that this is then he will say everything and they won't listen. If you live with someone who wants to keep halacha, okay, then you have to help him to keep halacha correctly. And even then, it should only be in the more strict things. As we said, I took firing on Shabbat, stealing, doing something that is a clear violating of halacha for someone who wants to keep halacha. And even then you have to say it only when he listens, if you think he will listen, and do it in a way that won't humiliate him. That is many frames of you are obligated, okay, to rebuke, but, okay, and the but here is very, very important, and we spoke about many of them already. So the but here is important, and it's very important for me to start with the obligation, because it's very easy to say, oh, we're not obligated, because who knows how to rebuke, because who knows how to get a rebuke, because we saw so many limiteds in the halacha for this thing. But it's so important to remember the start. We should be a society where we could rebuke each other. We should try to come there. We should show our necks that we want to get feedbacks. Tell us the feedback. We won't get insulted, or maybe we will, but we'll keep it in our hearts because we actually want people to give us feedbacks. And we will appreciate the feedback, and we will love the people who give us feedback. And we would want others also to listen to our feedback, because we are not individual alone keeping the mitzvot. We are a society who wants to be better. So that is the halacha frame, and as we said in the start, outside the halacha frames is also how our friends want to hear our feedback about everything that is maybe also not connected directly to mitzvot. That's also something we can learn a lot about from this mitzvah. Yes, Sophie.
Okay, it's more like from a personal perspective, but like for me, I really do not like conflicts. And like I don't mind like my friends telling me what I'm doing wrong, but I think if you have a relationship, you also have like a safe space where you can share these things, and then I know that it's coming from a good place. But as you say, like with some people, like I don't want to keep Halakha, or I don't want to keep Shabbat or whatever. But sometimes I can feel like that, or I feel that people are like, can you say, violating my space, where I'm like, don't try to like take me into this pitfall because I'm doing this way. And like I'm just not mature enough somehow to say like what you do is like I don't like it, or it's too much, so I just become quiet, and then I like make a distance, and then it can somehow like build up for me, so it's like it's easier for me just to like go around the corner somehow. And yeah, I think this is like maybe some of the hardest topic in Judaism for me, like how to tell people it. You could, I don't know if you could just approach it like, okay, you're hurting me somehow, because that's what it is. But I think it's like super difficult. Yeah, because then, and I'm also the person that thinks a lot about things like, why is the person doing this? And, or like, why can I hear that somebody said some hurtful stuff about me, not like only behind my back, but also like in my presence, where I'm like, okay, maybe it was not meant that way. But for me personally, like I can be affected, and I just don't know how to approach people with such a thing. Yeah.
In a way, Sophie, what you say is a quote from as you read from the Gemara. Who knows how to rebuke, and who knows how to get a comment? So you repeat that. I want to add, saying it's hard for, as the Talmud says, hard for every human being. Maybe here we are in the Nordic Bet Midrash. For Scandinavian, I don't know how it's for people for Finland, if you don't have the same Janteloven in Finland. But the idea of this Janteloven says something that is very important for us in Scandinavia and has many good things in itself. This personal space of don't interfere too much to other person's life. But the same thing has a problem. And in many ways, the Torah is the opposite than the Janteloven. It says you are connected to your next. And when they're in happiness, you have to be happy with them and help them in the happiness. And when they're in a sorrow, they should not be alone in the sorrow. And you're together in a society tries to be better. And when your next does something that is wrong, you have to blame if you haven't said anything. That is what the Torah says. And yes, it's against the instinct of, it feels problematic. When that is said, of course, we see all the quotes we saw from the Torah that tells, yes, you're obligated, but you're still obligated not to humiliate another person, not to build a fight, and other things. So to struggle to find a way of showing others that you want to hear their feedbacks, and maybe they will be open for your feedbacks, not because you know better than them, not because you judge them, but because when we don't have a mirror of another person telling us our mistakes, then we don't become better human beings. We need the eyes of others to make us better, and we have to be open to listen and to learn. And I really want, Sophie, like, if you study halakha, okay, and you see me, a rabbi, doing something that you think is against what you see in the Torah, what is better? For me, not for you. That you'll just keep your mouth, or you'll come to me saying, doesn't it say in Torah that this and this and this? And then I will either explain, say, oh, no, I have a good rabbinical answer for why I did that. Maybe it's a good, or just to cover for my sins. Or I say, thank you. I should say thank you. Because I'm also a human being. And I can forget that it's Shabbat, forget the halakha, or just being weak in a moment, and you make me strong again. But going to me saying, is that okay? And I hope that it goes the same way, the other way. So if you come to study halakha, and you do something that you want me to say, okay, we studied this last week. Is there something you didn't understand? And if you'll tell me, look, I'm still struggling, I'm building myself, I'll respect that. But don't you want someone to give you a feedback? Don't you want to be that we are a place where we are connected to each other, in not only in living beside each other? So I think that is the main learning we could get from this sentence, is we are not alone in our world, and we're not alone in front of our Creator, and we're not alone in the world of keeping mitzvot. Keeping mitzvot was not given to us, everyone individually. It was given to us as a part of Am Yisrael, together. And because of that, we have to, yes, with the limits, yes, without doing other sins. Everything we said is correct and important to remember. We shouldn't go around, well, now I know better than anyone, and I'm keeping the mitzvot of the Torah, telling everyone where they are wrong. That is not what the Torah says. But it doesn't say that because of that, we should just keep it to ourselves. So it's a balance here that is very important. Yes, Gisa.
One of the things I love in Finland is the way how we know how to talk about something without being aggressive to other people. So absolutely, there is the keeping the space and all the things, that's for sure as well. But it was already in my home country like this, and when I came to Finland, I love it because it's pretty similar to my way and to how I learned in my family. The only thing is like, you can give your feedback. You should, in my opinion, not always. There are some times that you should be quiet and let things be, because you are not the owner. You know everything. You don't own the truth. You don't own everything. However, in Finland, there's a very beautiful thing that we keep about the thing without attacking people, their personal lives, their personal ways. We talk about the problem. We do not talk about the person. And this is one of the things I love in Finland. You know how to give the feedback. You know how to approach the problem without being aggressive personally to the person, or without telling the person, you are no longer enough for me. I no longer would want to be around you. I think this is a very beautiful way to giving a feedback and to solve the problem without getting a conflict around. So you can still go along with the person, you can still get along with people, and the problem is solved somehow. And you make the other person realize what's going on. I think this is one very beautiful thing. Like leaving the ego out.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to learn. As I said, I don't know exactly how it is in Finland. I know Finland less, the culture, but I can say about Norway especially, Norwegians so much try to not be in conflict and not building a feeling of, oh, something is wrong, that most of us Norwegians will be very quiet for things we think is very wrong, just to keep the good feeling atmosphere. And sometimes it comes from a good deed, wanting to have a good environment and good feeling between people and not insulting anyone. It's a good deed. But I think if I could criticize my Norwegian culture, we go taking it too far. So thank you for saying that. Maybe I should move to Finland. No, I'm okay. Thank you. Esther, yes.
Yes, I'm from Finland, and it's true. We have been taught to be very nice, and especially girls have to be, not to make, we have to be somehow cool. But when I went to Israel, I learned different things. One has to be strong, and I start to admire the Israeli women. They are like this, hey, don't talk like that to me. And how do you talk to a religious woman like that? I'm a religious woman, don't talk to me like that. And you have to cut it down. And that is what I have learned when I'm now older. I have learned that not always I have to be like, try to be nice, because the person is like pushing and trying to put me down. So as a woman, it's very difficult to rebuke a man. If the men are always very strong with the attitude, and they always want to win the fight, and they always want to be right. So then sometimes the woman has just put the hands up and said, okay, cut it off. Let's stop that now, that it goes too much. And we have to keep our dignity. If somebody is saying like, oh, you can convert, and then after when you convert, then you can decide which mitzvot you keep. I say, no, what is the conversion is then zero if I start to think like that. Then I'm starting to think that, is this a good person in my life, or should I really cut it off? Because if the person is all the time trying to push his ideology that I should change my ways, then I had to cut that person away and said, I cannot tolerate this, because it's better to be alone and go to be surrounded by religious people than to be some Anha Ares who is trying to tear you down. But one has to be strong. I don't know if I made the point clear. That is
Thank
it.
you, Nila. Just one short feedback about that. There is a difference about who we choose our friends. That's important to say, and how we should be with our environment. We should not, even someone who says something we disagree, we should not judge them, or we don't know what their world is, and we can speak with it if they want to speak with us. But we shouldn't judge other people. In the second hand, I agree with you, Esther. If someone always tells me to do things that I believe are wrong, I won't be his friend. I will be polite. I will try to say things in a good way, but also a clear way. I say, no, that's not good for me. Sorry. As long as we are polite and we do it in a good way. But it doesn't go directly on rebuking other people, because then rebuking is really going more telling them what we believe they should do otherwise, or where they may be mistaken, and being open for them to say the same for ourselves. Before I let you down, the last one who will speak, I will soon be rebuked by Rav Moshe David because of two things. Two sins I'm doing here right now. The first one is not keeping the time, and the second one, and that's a big sin, I got 2 mitzvot to teach you, and we only went through the one. So I don't know how we will do that. We have a big mitzvah of you should love your next as yourself. And I plan to go on to that today. I will probably not be able to do that today. So we will either get it another time. And Rav Moshe David, be hard. You could be harsh with me. It's okay on that. But just Dan had his hand up. So even if we are after time, you'll be the last one to comment or to ask a question.
My question is about that when we rebuking is only for fellow or Jew, or also containing non-Jew.
So understanding what the Torah, according to what we studied, according to the mitzvah of rebuking in the Torah, okay, as a halakha. That's about mitzvot. It could be mitzvot about Shabbat and kosher. It could be mitzvot about not gossiping. Okay, any mitzvah we have towards someone who wants to keep the mitzvot or is obligated to keep the mitzvot. As I quoted, Biur Halakha said, someone says, I don't, the 613 mitzvot, I don't feel obligated to keep them. I don't want to try to keep them. Then it would be weird to rebuke them for it, because they already decide they don't want. Someone who wants to be a part, then it's place to do that. When that is said, the idea of rebuking, the idea of giving feedbacks to each other could also be understood outside the frame of keeping mitzvot or not keeping mitzvot, about how our deeds are, or did we do, so we are in school or in society or in work and we have a colleague, and the idea of we should care for the other person, we should be a society where we feel a part of a bigger thing, but we should not criticize everyone just to show that we are better than others, or just to show that we are clever than others. But when we give feedbacks to each other, only give feedbacks that is heard, that is an idea we could learn from this mitzvah. Okay, so the mitzvah is connected to the mitzvot and to the Torah in the halakha, but the idea we can take it much further than only the idea of keeping mitzvot in its frame. Rav Moshe David, it's your turn to rebuke me.
So thank you, Rav Yoav. And in terms of the time, I will rebuke you because past our time. I'm glad that we did have good questions and feedback, which is a good thing. And then I actually will accept the fact that I think you went very thoroughly into the halakha, which is very important, and at the end of the day, very, very relevant. So I will thank you. We'll figure it out in terms of the other part that you lack. But I think in terms of the shiur, and what we heard today is that it's a very thin balance, very delicate of how to do it, in what way, when to do it. And it takes some practice as well, because you know when you did wrong if you ended up creating a more poisonous environment. Because as Rav Yoav said quite a few times during the shiur, you're trying to make the world a better place. And then going back to the last question from Dan as well, we have it easier when we have the mitzvot to base ourselves on, because that is the commitment that we have, and that is and when you have a society committed to mitzvot, you can say, well, this is what the Torah says. It's much more difficult to do so in a society which has very broad and different ethics and morals, and sometimes painted by politics, etc., without getting into this is when we look at the ethics and the morals that the United Nations supposed to put forward, and then you see it in reality. And then, so it's much more difficult in society. But going back to personal relations, I think that's what we can try when you have a friend, to make the space, the environment, the work environment that you're in, to have a level of friendship in which you can actually say something and make it better, so that it's not there, that elephant is not there in the room. So thank you, Rav Yoav, and we will continue next week. I just put in the chat a survey for the Wednesday shiurim. It's not for the Sunday shiurim, because we want to know whether we should continue with the shiurim of Emunah or go back to Pirkei Avot, for those of you who are joining us also on Wednesday. So you can click on the survey and just fill it out, so that we can hear that feedback. Those in the last Wednesday shiur, we also asked that question there. So we'll make a decision. I'm going to send it out in the email as well, so you don't have to rush to click it right now. I see that I forgot the name line, just so that I know who's answering. So just give me a second, I'll fix that, and then you can fill it in. So, Shavuot Tov, we really pray and hope for only good news this week, and continue to pray for Am Yisrael, and for everyone, for the wounded, for our chayalim, for the hostages. Let's keep together through our tefillot. Shavuot Tov to everyone.
Shabbat Tov. Am
Shabbat
Yisrael
Tov.
Chai.
Shavuot Tov.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Shavuot Tov.
Shavuot Tov.